So Julie asked me to talk about Diversify, and I took that very literally. So this keynote, I kind of want to give everyone a whole bunch of ideas in a really short space of time and let your brain start zinging and then really wrap you up and then let you go for the rest of the day. So that's my objective. Be prepared. So, do you feel that testing is a boring career to be a part of? Do you feel that the only way to develop is to start learning about animation and coding? Do you think that leadership is only available through management? Your answers to these questions and others like them shape your view of what you think testing is. So each of us create a kind of box, or to be special, it might be not a rectangle, but you create a boundary of what you believe testing to be. And today I want to kind of challenge you to think about what's outside of those walls. So today, in this session, in this talk, and the organisers have put together a whole lot more sessions, we want to challenge you to diversify. So it's time to get rid of the boxes that we create for ourselves and to start thinking differently about testing as a career and what we can do. So what I want to do in this talk is destroy 4 of the walls that might be holding you back. And these walls kind of come from my journey as a tester. When I reflect back, these are kind of the things that I've smashed through to start seeing testing as something big and exciting. First of all, how we think. So before I had tester in my job title, I was working on a piece of software in out to production. It was a new telco network for Uruguay, yes, the country in South America. And we had like a production where people worked out that it was in the days of prepaid voucher codes, and I think everyone's probably old enough to remember those. You would go to the dairy and buy a top-up card, and then you had to laboriously type in 20 random characters and send it up. So people in Uruguay worked out that on our system, if you got you bought one card, you got your buddies together, you all typed in the code, and then on the count of 3, you all sent it in together, everyone got money. So I was the tester on this, and I was like, oh my god, it never occurred to me that people would do that. And obviously we lost quite a bit of money. We could get it fixed quite quickly because we had to. But I was like, how do you know what to test? How do you anticipate what people are going to do? So learning about heuristics and how other people think really helped me expand the way I thought about what I was going to test. So the first couple of things in my giant list are the test heuristics cheat sheet from Elizabeth Hendrickson. It's awesome. If you don't have a laminated copy on your desk, you should get one. James Bark has a heuristic test strategy model. It's filled with ideas. So both of these things are people who are awesome at testing, brain dumping their minds onto pieces of paper so that you can steal the stuff that they think about when they're doing their testing. So, ways of thinking. In my second job as a tester, I met Aaron, and he started talking to me about mind maps, and I was like, this is totally better than that crappy Excel thing I was doing before. So this kind of opened up a whole new world of stuff for me. So exploratory testing. Elizabeth Hendrickson, again, has a freaking awesome book. You should read it. It's called Explore It, and the kind of subtitle is it helps you reduce risk and increase confidence in exploratory testing. There's a whole bunch of blog posts around about visual modeling, so using mind maps to show your testing, make it more collaborative, share it with your team. Aaron has some, I have some. John Bark, who is Jane's brother, so not a typo, it's a real other person with the surname Bark. He's written a paper on structuring exploratory testing using session-based test management. So he was kind of the first paper on this topic maybe 15 years ago now. There's a whole ton of stuff about that. James Lindsay can help you justify why exploration is required in any strategy. So here's some great resources, blog posts, little animations that engage kind of management folk. Have you ever been in an argument with people because you've found a bug and they don't think you've found a bug? Yeah. So oracles are the way that we recognise problems. They give us a language for explaining to people why we think something's wrong. So Testing Without a Map by Michael Bolton, he introduces a mnemonic called hiccups, which help us kind of talk about this stuff. On the topic of mnemonics, there's a zillion of those around. There's a couple that I like that I've added to the list, which are around mobile testing. So if you're doing anything in the mobile space, pop, clone, gun, slice up, run, really useful ways, again, to learn about how other people think and kind of steal their stuff. So this all is about critical and lateral thinking. It's about discovering how other people find bugs that are different to the ones we find. And it's about learning a language to describe to people kind of things we haven't had words for. Second, technical. So I think a lot of people make the mistake of smashing through this wall first. If you try and write a whole bunch of code without knowing how to think and how other people think, then you're doing really fast a whole lot of useless shit, basically. So Jen Hayward makes this point far more eloquently in the latest edition of Testing Trapeze, which was published at 5:30 this morning before I got on the plane. So her article is titled Where to Start as a Technical Tester. I would really encourage you to read it, and also if you're lucky enough to be in her session today, she's going to be talking on the same topic. So for me, I went to Waikato and did a comp sci degree, so I had kind of smashed through this wall before I started as a tester, but a lot of people come and ask me how do we learn to code. So Code Club Aotearoa is a great way, I think, to get started in this kind of stuff, and I don't want to steal Craig's lightning talk, so you should go learn more about this from Craig, but at a very high level, volunteers go out into primary schools and intermediates and teach kids to code. So they have modules about Scratch, which is like a drag and drop way of learning computer programming concepts, and then they teach HTML, CSS, and Python using kind of computer games and little websites and quite cool stuff. So if you don't know how to code, a really good way to learn is just try and stay 1 week ahead of a group of 9-year-olds, right? It's motivational. And then you can reinforce kind of that stuff that you're learning by explaining it to kids. Like the best way to cement stuff is to teach it to someone else. And testing, so I did find that when I started doing testing, I needed to pick up some stuff about technical things that were specific to testing. So there's a guy called Alan Richardson, who is also known as Evil Tester. Like on Twitter, you might know his little devil horn icon. He has a book called Selenium Simplified, which is awesome if you're doing anything with Selenium or WebDriver. He also has a thing called Java for Testers, which is like a free online tutorial. It doesn't go into like Java, like dev Java, but it goes into like test Java and what you need to be able to write test automation in Java. I'm just checking that I didn't want to say anything else on this topic. Oh, I did. So, this side of the box isn't just about coding. So you might want to learn more about architecture, or databases, or mainframes, or any number of other things. The biggest challenge in this wall is trying to pick something. And so what I'd encourage you to do is to go to your team, talk to them about what would be valuable for them if you were to learn more about it, and then ask them for help, ask them for ideas or resources, get some skills in the area that you're going to use. Okay, third wall, specialization. So, kind of when you learn to think and when you learn to code, I see a lot of testers who are like, okay, I'm going to change career now. And there's so many more opportunities. I wish they wouldn't go away. So, specialization. People who are capable of operating in niches where they are rare and valuable. So we at the NZ have recently hired a mobile tester. It was quite difficult. So not many people are kind of more about mobile, there's a whole lot of different mnemonics and test approaches, but the couple of things I've put on the list, device fragmentation. So learning more about how you test when there's like 3 Apple devices and 300 Android ones. Exaggerating a bit. Or learning about emulators versus real devices. So Martin Caution Reader is a great piece on that. Usability. So we had someone come into BNZ from the Blind Foundation and show us how people with low vision would use our applications. To be honest, it was a little bit scary. Some of them were not so good. So there is an increasing focus on delighting users, making our applications usable. So testing using the Can I Use This mnemonic from David Greenlee's, or applying some generic testing personas to try and think about how other people would interact. From an accessibility perspective, there's impairment categories that you can look up. So Albert Garee has a whole bunch of stuff around accessibility. He's kind of obsessed with it. Impairment categories is the one that I really like. Or you can do the BuzzFeed article, 6 simplest web accessibility tests that anyone can do, which are actually genuinely quite useful, and you should try and do them on your application. So APIs, microservices, web services, kind of the buzzwords that are starting to come in as people start to split up their applications. There's resources on here for the API testing dojo, which is like a gateway into a huge ton of information about API testing. Many organizations are starting to try and reduce their release cycles. So I've put some stuff in there around continuous delivery. Amy Phillips, who's based at Songkick in the UK, has a great YouTube clip on testing in a continuous delivery world. I would really encourage you to read it. She's not just talking about automation, she talks about how you actually work. Security. IBM's ethical hacking team, which is kind of the cool way of saying their security team, have released a set of YouTube clips that explain the OWASP top 10 in like 2-minute little pieces, which is a really quick way to kind of get knowledgeable enough to sound like you know what you're talking about in that area. So these are kind of the tip of the iceberg, right? Like, there's more than this where you could go so deep in specialist areas. So recently I published 5 pathways on my blog, and each of them have, you know, close to 100, I think, articles, resources, exercises that you can use to learn more about the specific fields within testing that you could get really, you know, into that niche. Last week I was in India. It was really interesting. They were talking about technologies that we're not even kind of, we think of them as buzzwords, for them it's kind of what they're doing now. So Internet of Things, they were talking about someone's wife had bought a wireless kettle, so that when her alarm went off in the morning on her phone, the kettle would start boiling, so that by the time she had her shower and got to the kitchen, she could just pour her tea. They had a wireless air conditioning unit, so it sensed when the car was within a certain distance from their house and would switch on, so the house would be cool by the time they got home. So when you think about that from a testing perspective, kind of the compatibility and connectivity and interoperability of these completely different devices, and like to me that's quite exciting. Big data. So Virgin Atlantic are now collecting 0.5 terabyte of data per flight. So how do we test that what we're capturing, analysing and reporting on is actually accurate? That's kind of an interesting thing to think about. So the third rule, there's so many opportunities here to kind of pick something to specialise in and then really dig into a field that's not very well known. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to pioneer kind of new ideas and new thinking along with the new technology that's being developed. Fourth wall. So as we step off the base of our box, we're going to step forward in our teams and also into the wider community. So this wall is not specific to testing, which means we can read widely, we can ask a whole lot of people for help to improve. So I think you're pretty fortunate today. There's quite a few sessions on communication. When I looked through, there was one on miscommunication, when I'm talking the walk, and when I'm becoming someone who makes things happen. So I kind of hope that everyone's going through at least one of those, because for me, communication is an awesome thing to try and get better at. The ideas in all of the previous slides that I've talked about come from testers who decided to start speaking and writing about what they do. So you can do the same. Would you like to take the stage? And I know you're all sitting there going, no. So before you say no, I really encourage you to watch Public Speaking for Quiet People. So it's a video from Michelle Dickinson, who's also known as Nano Girl on Twitter. She delivered that talk at the Microsoft conference in Auckland quite recently. It's really awesome. So it's just about the value that introverts can bring as public speakers. I would personally recommend Toastmasters to kind of improve your public speaking skills and make this seem like a less intimidating thing to do. And then kind of once you see speaking as an option, you'll find there's a lot of people who want to help you out. So there's an organisation called Speak Easy who do mentoring for new speakers at tech conferences. And I'm sure that Shirley would love to hear from you as well if you're keen to go that speaking route. We're always looking for people who WeTest. And it's a great friendly audience to kind of trial out stuff. Or, if you're not a speaker, you could write. So, as I mentioned, I edit Testing Trapeze magazine. I would love to hear from people who want to try and write an article. We put through a lot of first-time writers. There's a lot of supportive people, and in fact, a number of people here have been first-time writers for us, and I hope will tell you that it wasn't as painful as you might imagine. Alternatively, you could blog, you could contribute to one of the international magazines, Testing Circuits, Tea Time with Testers. They're always looking for stuff from people. Share your ideas, start getting out there. So, for me, I love testing because I don't see a box anymore. I feel like I'm kind of in the middle of this wide open space, and sometimes I'm completely overwhelmed by how many things I could learn more about. I want to learn more about that, but I also want to do that, and I just don't have enough hours in a day to do all of the things that I want to. So, I would really encourage you to learn to think, get technical, specialise, and start participating. So, I think that there are many things you can think up if only you try. So now is the time to diversify.